Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Savvy Investor webinar in partnership with State Street, Private Markets, a Silent Revolution.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylee Jacoby, here with Jennifer Tribush, Head of Alternatives Product at State Street, and Tom Vogt, Head of Customer Success here at Mercatus. We're excited to chat today about our recent survey of 170 private market asset managers and owners. We asked these investors about why they invest in this asset class, where they see the private markets heading in the next 3 to 5 years, and where they struggle in terms of data management and ESG reporting. Asset owners and managers expect demand for private market investments to rise in the next 3 to 5 years. The average allocation for asset classes such as private equity, private debt, infrastructure, and real estate is expected to increase from 22% to 28% in that time frame, while asset managers predict that their private market allocations will rise from 30% on average to 35%. Data quality and standardization is a key barrier to increasing private market allocations. Asset owners want greater use of technology to improve the quality and timeliness of information from their asset managers, and they increasingly want an accurate top-down view of their portfolios across all asset classes. Institutional investors want their managers to upgrade their technology and back office systems to improve their service provision and broaden the private market opportunity set. Poor data limits investors' ability to run forward-looking scenario analysis or conduct stress tests on their investment portfolios. There's a lot to unpack from our survey. So Jen, let's start with you. The asset owners and asset managers who we surveyed expect an increase in investments in private assets in the next few years. What does this mean for multi-asset managers in terms of managing their data from both the public and private assets?
Hi, Kaylee. Great to be with you again today. This survey confirms what we're hearing from our multi-asset private markets managers, as well as traditional public market owners who are looking to see higher yields and greater diversification in private markets. So we've asked our asset owner client base over the next 3 to 5 years where their increase of exposures is going to come from in private markets. So about 50% of an increase in allocation for both the private equity, private credit, and infrastructure asset classes. Real estate isn't too far behind with an increased allocation of about 35% to that asset class as well. So let's remember that this is a very different asset class than public markets. There's greater complexity at the asset level in private markets. The data is largely unstructured, and the investors rely heavily on spreadsheets and manual workarounds.
Thanks, Jen. Now, let's dig a little deeper on the challenges in data management for the private markets. We asked investors how they currently manage their data, and nearly 70% said that their data is siloed in spreadsheets or point solutions. This includes data for their valuation and performance, risk exposure, fund accounting and administration, and everything is housed in a different place. Tom, what does that mean on a practical level for an asset manager trying to scale in the private markets?
I would start with what does scale actually mean? So in my conversations every day, and I see it supported in this survey, biggest things I hear, investors want more information than ever, and reporting is more manual than ever. So scale, you can simplify it to how fast and repeatable can you actually answer investor questions? I mean, almost 70% of the people in the survey reported that they rely on siloed data reports in Excel. Only 20% of them actually give interactive online tools to investors to run their own analysis. So you have to look at the why, and the survey actually reported some interesting things there. It was either a cost, it was lack of an understanding of what alternatives there might be, or it was a lack of urgency by management. And I think when you look at all of these, they really point to this is a high growth industry that doesn't have a lot of time to stop and consider what could be invested in. So there's a disconnect in the value of poor data management and what actual solutions exist for that. And I like to take a real world example on that. So if you look at a fund manager just trying to see what is NAV, calculate that over time and drill into what makes that up. Today, that is a huge process. It all comes in raw accounting transaction data across 40, 50 spreadsheets that all have to be normalized to get into one place. And this is the exact same problem that an individual 10 years ago had in trying to see his or her portfolio. They would have to download all the information from multiple bank accounts, credit cards, investment holdings. They would have to aggregate that together, normalize it, and then run their own analysis. Today, you have Mint, you have personal capital. And in private markets, in a lot of cases, we've gotten there or are moving in that direction. And you can add that same thing on valuations and scenario analysis, like you mentioned, but there's an awareness that probably isn't there.
Thanks, Tom. Now, help us understand the why behind all of this. What do asset owners want from their asset managers? Based on our survey, 68% of asset owners said that they saw a significant opportunity cost to dealing with managers' data issues. Jen, what are you hearing from asset owners about their access to manager data?
Yeah, Kelly, I think what we're hearing based on these survey results is that the data management strategy is now a strategic imperative for managers. Our survey found that 58% of asset owners said that they check data management and data quality as part of their due diligence process and manager selection. When we asked them what would be more useful to help them to allocate to private markets, 68% said that the use of technology to provide transparency to investments and funds. This has only become more glaring since the global pandemic began. Investors such as LP were under increased pressure for visibility into their portfolio and risk exposure. They place greater demand on asset managers for insights and ad hoc reporting. This is unlikely to change as we emerge from the crisis. Having a unified data management system that is a single platform to manage data from front to back is no longer nice to have for asset managers. It's what's going to be what separates the winners from the losers in private markets.
We've seen that investors expect to allocate more money to private assets and that they need better access to quality data and insights. Tom, tell us about what the future looks like for the private markets according to our respondents.
Yeah, I think Jen just nailed it when she said it's no longer going to be a nice to have. It's going to be mandatory. I mean, the survey shows that they expect greater diversification in their investments and their investors. So if data quality is a challenge right now, I mean, think about how much worse that problem is going to get without focusing on it as a clear initiative. So it's really, the future is headed for a change in org structures and improved forecasting. And just to think about org structures for a second, think about implementing an accounting system. This is something an organization doesn't think twice about today. It's a necessity for keeping books. And with that, there are entire business functions that oversee and administer that as a business process and a closed process. On the private side, you don't have that. Collecting data from portfolio companies, that's a challenge, but you don't see any controller. You don't see any specific function dedicated to overseeing that as a process. And you have manual reporting with low data quality as a result. I was having a conversation with a client just the other day. They have 10 different asset classes. They have subject matter experts, but they don't have anyone that oversees that entirely and understands every data point that they're collecting across each of those. And the point is, the future is going to bring a mix of those two, the process with the solution. So I think that's one. And I think the other, Kaylee, you touched on in the scenario analysis that you were talking about earlier. I think the industry is headed for significant improvements in forecasting. And this is the topic I hear more than any other. And it tells me a lot. It's A, this is a really big challenge, and B, it's clearly become such a big challenge that they're willing to do something about it. And so some of the statistics I took from the survey was 84% of asset owners reported it would take longer than a week to run a scenario analysis across their portfolio. Almost 60% said the same about producing a fund NAV. And most of those do that with a third party. And if you take all of that together, 75% of them reported that it's an entirely manual process to put that all together. So I think the future is in greater diversification, but also a big focus on improving forecasting.
Thanks, Jen and Tom, for sharing your insights on our recent survey. Let me close it out on a positive note and remind all of our viewers how optimistic these asset owners and asset managers are about the private markets. Across the board, they plan to increase allocations to these asset classes over the next 3 to 5 years. For more information on the survey, please visit the link below. And thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you so much for watching. Bye.